Satnam, welcome. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to another program in our continuing series called HomeKirtan and Chat. And we have with us a musician guest, Shivpreet Singh, who I will introduce to you in just a moment. Those of you who are joining us live, please go ahead and put into the comments your name and where you are logged in from. That will help us understand how far our reach is today for the program. Welcome Mahan Sangeet from Abisa. And so I'd like to take now this time to introduce to you my guest, who is Shivpreet Singh. And Shivpreet Singh we're going to talk about his music, and he's going to share some information and talk about a particular Shabad that he has just released. And so I'll let him do all that. But let me tell you a little bit about Shivpreet Singh. And so Shivpreet Singh is a 10th generation direct descendant of 17th century Sikh poet Bhai Lal. And he is also a pioneer in the area of fusion Sikh kirtan, music that we all love. And he is based in California. His media productions combine Gurbani with melodic intricacies of Indian classical music, along with the instrumentation and harmonic elements of Western music. He brings in contemporary musicians from all around the world. Shivpreet is also an accomplished entrepreneur, finance professional, and father of 3 kids. He holds an MBA from the University of Chicago, Booth School of Business, with an emphasis in finance, strategy, and entrepreneurship. He currently is the CEO of BioRaman Pharmaceuticals, a company involved in the development of oncology therapeutics. Doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. Anyway, Shivpreet Singh, so nice to have you as our guest today, and welcome.
Wonderful. Satnam ji, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. And wonderful it's really an honor to be sitting with you and chatting about Baisakhi and some of my music. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, absolutely. I've been wanting to have you for a while, and I'm so glad it worked out that we could be together today. I want to recognize Kirandeep Kaur, who is online with us today, and from London, and Judith from Latvia. So nice to have you. Shivpreet, why don't you jump right into talking about this Shabad that we're going to see a video of at the end of this program. And so please take it away.
Absolutely. So the Shabad that I'm going to do some alap for this afternoon is Uttam Mat Mere Hriday Tu Aao. This is a Shabad by Guru Arjan Dev Ji. It's in Rag Asa. And it's only a composition from a few weeks ago. A lot of my compositions have taken years to make, but this is one of the new ones. It's going to be released after this program in a video on YouTube. But what I'll try to do at the beginning of this program is try to go through the Shabad in Alap and try to show how beautiful Guru Arjan Dev Ji's words are and how relevant to these times and to Baisakhi. The first line of the Shabad goes, Uttam mat mere hriday tu aao. O exalted wisdom, come into my heart. Of course, Baisakhi is a time where we want to go and visit our Guru. This was the traditional time where all the Sikhs would get going and go to Amritsar or wherever the Guru was. And I imagine, Sangat, Sikh Sangat going into Amritsar, and what they hear from Guru Arjan Dev Ji is this: Uttam mat mere hriday tu aao. Aao is again come. Um, and there are so many, if you really meditate upon just this word, aao, come, aao, and see how beautifully the Shabad facilitates that meditation. Um, I'm just mind boggled every time I fall into love with the Shabad, and this is my latest love. We're gonna start with that. Pritpal Singh ji.
Yes, that's great. I love that concept of Audi, the idea that we take one step toward the Guru and Guru takes 1,000 steps to us. So why don't you go line by line and explain this Shabad?
All right. So let me turn on my Tanpura here and Utamamat mere hriday tu aavo, mere hriday tu aavo. Utamamat mere hriday tu aavo, mere hriday tu aavo. Gyavo gavu gun govinda at pritam mohe lage nao. Gyavo gavu gun govinda at pritam mohe lage nao. Aao, aao. So Guru Sahib is saying, Aao, Aao. And in the second line he says, how do you come? He says, Dhyao, Gao, Gun Govinda, At Pritam Mohe Lage Nao. Dhyao, remember, and Gao, sing. And how beautifully the Guru has said, okay, get inside, Uttamata, O wisdom, come inside me. So both my mind and my body are singing. Dhyao has to do with mind, thinking, remembering, and Gao has to do with the body. So he's inviting every atom of the body to come and sing, to come and remember. And in the first antara, Guru Sahib says, Gur ke shabad banavo homa आओ आओ बनाओ बनाओ गुर के शब्द बनाओ होमा गुर का दर्शन सन चो हर धान संचो संचो आवो 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 हृदय तू आओ. गुरु के शब्द बनाओ ए मन. Let me fashion my mind through the Guru Shabad. And Guru ka darshan sancho har dhan. And let me collect Hari's dhan, God's wealth, with the darshan of the Guru. And, and again, the meditation on the Ao is now rhymed with banao. Let me fashion my mind. Come, fashion my mind. And then the second rhyme here is Guru ka darshan sancho hardhan. And now, how beautiful this is that the hardhan is rhyming with the ihuman, but ao is rhyming with banao and with sancho. Sancho means collect. So come and collect the wealth of God. Um, Again, I'm reminded of how, pilgrims and seekers would go to Guru Sahib during Baisakhi. And Guru Sahib is saying, come, here's the wealth of God. And here you can fashion your mind with this wealth of God. So the Shabad goes on. Tripta Ghavan Sachenai Tripta Ghava Sachenai Arth Sat Majana Sant Dhuraye Uttam Uttam Aठ सठ मजन गुर का दर्शन त्रिपत अघावन अठ सठ मजन उत्तम उत्तम आओ आओ संत दुराए मेरा हृदय तुआ Tript Aghavan. Remove all the thirst of my mind. And Atsat Majjan. Sant Dhurai. If you go to the saints' feet, the saints' dust, the feet dust of the saints is like taking 68 pilgrimages. The Guru is saying, come, take the pilgrimage of the dust of the saints' feet. And how do you do that? He goes into the next tantra, says, Sab मैं जानो करता है जानो जानो आबो आबो सब मैं जानो करता है आओ जानो जानो means come and know, understand. Sab mein jano karta hai. Understand that within everyone, sab mein is karta hai. Generally, we try to translate this into karta ek means the creator is one. But I've always found the karta is much broader than just the creator. Karta is the karta, one who is doing. So this is the one who's doing everything. Whatever you're doing is being done by this entity. You're just an instrument. Sab mein jano karta hai. Recognize that the one in everyone is the one doer. Sad sangat med bodh bibe. Sad sangat med bodh bibe. Mil bodh vivek, mil bodh vivek. मेरा हृदय तू आओ. This is the exalted wisdom that comes through the Sadh Sangat. Sadh Sangat mil buddh vivek uttam mat mere hriday tu aao. And in the last tantra, Guru Sahib says, दास सगल का छोड़ब माँ दास सगल का छोड़ब माँ नानक को गुर दीनो दान गुर दीनो दान गुर दीनो दान दीनो दीनो आओ आओ Ao, come, and the Guru shall give you this gift. Nanak ko Guru Dino Dan, Das Sagal ka chod anuman. This gift comes from the Guru that you leave your ego away and tu karta tu hua mujh mein raha na tu. And I become you by sim- by meditating upon you. I become you. This is the gift of the Guru. Guru says, Das sagal ka chod abhiman, leave apart your ego. Nanak ko gur dino dan. This is the gift that the Guru gives. That Uttam mat mere hriday tu aao. Every time I sang Uttam mat, I was reminded of what we say in Ardas. Let me be simple, but let me have high thinking. And here Guru Sahib is inviting us to invite this wisdom of the one doer within us. So our mind and body is Dhyao, Gao, Gun Govinda. So our mind and body is singing the praises of that one. So, like I said, I'm in love with this Shabad. Of course, this happens with any composition I do and any Shabad I sing. But I've really been enjoying this, and there's a video that will be released after this program, like Prithpal Singh ji said, and the video has a different take on this Shabad because what I just did for you was I tried to meditate upon the ao element, the come element, and the video emphasizes on the uttam element because there are many things that are rhyming with uttam like tripatakavan, artsat marjan, gurka darshan, uttam. And how beautifully Guru Arjan Dev Ji does that. He not only are the ends of the lines rhyming, there are rhymings within the Shabad. And when you connect all these rhymes and you meditate on the Shabad using those rhymes, there's so many connections that are made with your mind and body. And that's sorry for the long-winded
No,
introduction,
no,
but
it's
this
great,
this is
Shivpreet. I often think that the Bani of Guru Arjan is some of the most sublime poetry, and he seemed to have the utmost skill in finding those rhymes, both within the line, as you said, and then, of course, at the end of the lines. Just amazing. What a wonderful interpretation of this Shabad. Thank you. And we will take a look at that video at the end of today's program. Someone was asking in the comments whether this is Gurmukhi, and yes, of course, this is the Bani of the Guru, the words of the Guru, and it is composed or written in Gurmukhi. And so, yes, that's what Shivpreet Singh has been talking about. And I want to say that we've got people tuning in from Mexico and Spain and Canada, and so welcome to you all. And if you are just joining the program, please do say hi with putting your name in the comments and where you're from. That'd be great. And all of you who are listening, if you have any questions for Shivpreet Singh, please go ahead and put them in the comments. I may not get to them till later in the program, but if you want to put them there already, that's just fine. So, Shivpreet Singh, let's talk a little bit about your early education. This is one of the things that I think really distinguishes you from many other musicians working in this area, and that is, your online bio mentions that you studied Bansuri flute, the wooden flute from Eastern Asia, and with Pandit Raghunath Pranasa, right?
Yes,
And that you also studied Western music at UC Berkeley.
right.
And so, have you studied voice formally, or is it just something that comes naturally?
Um, I have not studied voice formally, although I've sat down with the masters of the trade and tried to understand from listening. Um, though how Indian classical music is taught, however you learn it from whichever instrumentalist, the voice is primary. So when I was going to my guru's place, Pandit Raghunath Prasanna, to initially I'd gone to learn the harmonium and also maybe sing a little bit, and they would take any students who would learn music, and I picked up the bansuri, and then that became my main instrument. But there was riyaz with the voice all the time. I mean, you would go in, and that would be 45 minutes of the hour would be vocal exercises. And
So,
so, yeah,
do you have a regular Riaz practice that you pursue?
yes, I do have a regular riyaz that I do. It's mostly with Mandar Saptak and Sharaj ka riyaz, what is called. It's basically focusing your the lower and mid range of the voice. That's every kind of musician develops a different kind of style, and what I have developed is the lower end of the vocal range, and so I do a lot of that riyaz. What I've found is you can really develop the low end of your voice, and then it expands your range, and then the upper range. I don't have a very shrilly high voice, um, but you can expand your range if you can go lower, then you have sort of a slightly higher range in singing. So that's really been a sort of a 25-30 year journey where I've practiced every day. It takes maybe 15-20 minutes every day on the Sharaj
Mhm.
and Mandas of the Kriyas. Uh, but my singing is also influenced by my bansuri playing.
Ah,
A lot of the singers generally learn with string instruments. So they,
mhm.
singing is imitating the string instruments, and the string instrument is imitating the singer. We learn from each other. In my case, I learned singing, but I also learned the bansuri. So a lot of the things that I do with my voice are kind of imitating the bansuri. I only learned this more recently when bansuri. Uh, my fellow bansuri players who are playing with me say, "Hey, It's really easy to play the things that you're singing on the bansuri." So
Oh,
I
interesting.
realized that I was
Mhm.
kind of that's how I learned my singing. It's a little different.
That's very interesting. I can hear that in your recordings. It seems like the selective slide that you do vocally is very reminiscent of the way the bansuri is played that way too.
Right.
So beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. And I also can hear how the lower end of your vocal register is where you have a lot of strength, and it's beautiful. So, do as a pianist and flute player, do you find that you have to somehow strike a balance between staying practiced in those instruments as well as singing?
I don't practice the piano or flute much. I mean, I I play them. I don't play the bansuri as much, but I play the piano, but only to an extent that it helps with my singing. And I've just like with the voice, I wasn't necessarily trained in the piano. I just kind of learned by myself. It was really because I didn't really have other instruments readily available. I had a keyboard with me all the time during college, and so that's what I ended up doing, singing
Is
with the
that
piano.
is that where you mainly compose melody? Is with the keyboard?
Um, it can be. My compositions can come from very different places. They can come from the piano. They can come from the bansuri. They can just come to me. I'm walking on the road. I hear a bird singing, or they come. This is one thing I'm amazed about it is I don't know how many different ways I've learned different compositions just from snippets from hearing um, either singers or just nature, and different melodies just come to me. I'm amazed how they do.
So you are, at least I can assume you're at least bilingual. Probably
Yeah.
Punjabi is your primary language and English is secondary. In the area of music, do you find that the classical Indian approach to music, the system of rag, somehow exists as a sort of second language or additional language with your Western music training? Is there a middle ground where they meet? How do you make that work?
Uh, I've never really thought of I, like languages. I would say Hindi, Punjabi, English, or I'm probably equally bad at. And similarly with music, I mean I'm equally terrible with the piano, bansuri, and voice. And Western and Indian, I just know enough that I kind of dabble into them, and I try to learn every day. The good thing about casting a wide net is, today I might be listening to Mozart, and tomorrow I'm listening to Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Saab, and the
Exactly.
third day
Yeah.
I'm listening to a kid who's mixing the two, and I'm learning from them. So every day is a new day, and every day is a day to learn.
I love that, and I can definitely relate to the way of listening constantly, and you find something that inspires or catches you, and yeah. So your recordings, they do fuse Eastern and the Western. Um, I think that I hear influences of perhaps other musicians, both Eastern and Western. Are there particular either ragis or classical Indian musicians or perhaps Western composers who have really stood out in your mind as influences in your music today?
Um, So the two artists that I really tried to imitate and learn my singing from, because you're right, I didn't necessarily go to a vocal teacher, but I learned from listening. And the two artists that I learned uh, from are Jagjit Singh, the ghazal singer, and Lata Mangeshkar, of course, the Nightingale of India. I don't, I take it all in. Like I said, I listen to Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Saab. I listen to operatic singers whoever is giving me um, something to do with the voice that's a little different. And of course, I have to understand my limitations. I can only do so much, and I'll take where I can learn and see what I can do it with my limitations.
Well said, yeah. When you're working to develop a new melody, do you start with the rag and then create Western accompaniment or arrangement around that? Or does the melody just arrive in your awareness?
Uh, they can both happen. This last Shabad, I was a melody came into my head, da 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 da, right? And so what I did was I randomly found a Shabad, and I was approaching Baisakhi, so I was like, okay, Guru Nanak, give me a Shabad for Baisakhi, and I knew the melody that was in my head was Asa, so I restricted my search into Shabads that were Asa, and this Shabad came up. And I was like, okay, thank you, Guru Sahib, and this, that's how it went. And then, of course, then you- I add the accompaniment after that. Sometimes what happens is I've heard a chord progression. Maybe I'm listening to popular American music, and I do that a lot. I listen to popular music. I'm really inspired by how music gets into the hearts. And popular music does that really, really well. So I listen to the chord progressions, and maybe that's the start. I lay down the chord progression, and then I randomly search a Shabad. And that is the Shabad that will go with that progression.
Well, it's nice to know that you put your pants on one leg at a time like the rest of us.
If at all.
Yeah, sometimes if at all. The power of instrumental music can be felt in a Mozart sonata or in perhaps a performance of some rag, you know. The Sikh tradition of delivering words of revelation of our gurus in a musical form. It began with Guru Nanak, of course, continues to this day. But I wonder what you think. What is the significance of that? What if Gurbani had arrived as simple sutras to be read, to be recited in a monotone? Where would we be? What is the significance that our Sikh music, our Sikh scripture, our Sikh teachings, everything has arrived in musical form? What is that?
Well, I'm so glad that it does, because I don't know where I would find myself in a
Yeah.
non-musical Sikhi world. I don't think I could exist. But I'm reminded of this cab ride I once took. I was coming back from work, and I was driving uh, with a Muslim driver, and I was singing, humming something, and he said, "Oh, I want to listen to this. What are you singing?" And I sang it for him, and he said, "What is this?" I was like, "Oh, this is a prayer. We're praying." And I asked him, "Hey, do you guys also pray like this?" He's like, "No, no, 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 no. We cannot have music.
Yeah.
Music is not a prayer." And that day, I felt such gratitude that Guru Nanak has put such a high emphasis and raised the level of music to the level where, the highest spiritual heights are accessed through music in Sikhi. And what a beautiful thing for an artist to have that, to not just have music as an entertainment or something that we do on the side, as a cultural thing. It's a
Right.
really spiritual thing, and what a fantastic blessing to have. Sometimes we don't realize it, but when you look at some of the other cultures, it's just fantastic to have Guru Nanak go to Bhai Mardana and say, "Hey, the melody is coming. Play your rabab. And let's sing together." It's just a beautiful path to be taken.
Yeah, so true. And I think that there are many people who may come to Sikhi um, through just hearing the music, that
Right.
they are attracted to that and it moves them, even if they don't understand the message of the words.
Right.
It's amazing. Um, However, let's go to a little flip side of this. Are there are there any musical boundaries which Gurbani should not cross? And I ask that of you because I know that you are always looking for ways to expand those boundaries. Really, and that's what I see in your music is that you have expanded those perceived boundaries. But are there any boundaries that we should acknowledge? Are there instruments that should not be used? Any styles that should not be used?
I used to think yes. I used to think there are some instruments that are highly seductive, like the saxophone, and should not be
Hmm.
used in Gurbani. I used to think there, the heavy beats, maybe rap music should not be, but I was absolutely wrong. I
I
was
hear you.
absolutely wrong. I think whatever, and Guru Sahib says that whatever is raising uh, your mind's consciousness to the oneness is fine. And to me, I like a certain kind of music. That's the certain kind of music that I compose and I sing and I also listen to. But perhaps this is not the music that a person sitting out on the street listens to. When Guru Nanak started singing, um, he could have picked the sitar, or he could have picked one of the instruments from the Indian heritage, the Hindu heritage, to go along with him. But he didn't. He picked something that was from the Mid East. He picked a rabab, and
Hmm.
people ask me, "Hey, you're kind of doing something strange, which is fusion music." I was like, "No, no, no. Fusion music was started by Guru Nanak. He took the rabab and he mixed the Indian ragas with it, and people were really moved to it. It's amazing to think about that Guru Nanak was going from place to place, and people were just amazed by his music. And you're right, they perhaps didn't understand what he was saying initially, and but that music was so powerful, and the feelings that he brought out by singing it in a certain way and having that bond with Bhai Mardana, especially with the different culture that mix, what beautiful fusion it might have been. And so I'm not doing something new. I'm just following Guru Nanak.
I can't help but agree with you, although I've also many years ago been in that same place of thinking, well, no, the music has to be within these boundaries. You can't take it elsewhere. And then I realized, you know what? If the if the music can penetrate with the Guru's word to somebody, anybody, then it's valid. It shouldn't be limited to only people who will appreciate rag. Let's open it up and make sure that everyone can get a chance to connect. And so I'm glad
Yeah.
to hear that. And of course, I recognize that in your compositions already. So it's great. Your collaborations with other musicians stands out in my mind as something beautiful. And regardless of whether they're Western musicians or classical Indian musicians, the cello, as you said, saxophone, the harp guitar, which was beautiful, and of course the bansuri flute. How do you step into that? Is it right away as you're working with a melody, you hear another instrument and then you search out to find a musician, or do you just meet a musician and say we should do something, and then it comes together? What works for you?
I look for elegance that goes to a point where I hear Guru Nanak. When I hear Guru Nanak coming from an instrument, when I hear the oneness coming from an instrument, whichever instrument that might be, or a voice, I hear someone who I feel like, wow, this is just amazing. I feel I'm connected. I actively reach out. So you mentioned the harp guitar. Muriel Anderson, she's one of the best finger guitarists in the world right now, and she's just phenomenal. And the way she plays, it's just even one note she'll play, it's different. It just sounds like you you're one with the universe. It's just amazing. And I could say that same thing about Sue Ellen, my cellist, or Jeremy Mariah, who's my saxophonist, who's in Israel right now. These people just they blow my mind. They're just so beautiful. They remind me of of the oneness that perhaps at the time of the gurus, these instrumentalists would bring into Gurbani music. And that's why every guru, if you think about it, people say, why are you bringing these new instruments into Gurbani? Well, if Guru Arjan Dev Ji said, look, we have to only do music like Guru Nanak. Then we will only have the rabab playing in the Gurdwaras. We would not have saranda, we would not have sarangi, we would not have any of these string instruments. So the instruments and the people who play these instruments are really that. They're instruments. And we're singing to that oneness. So when I'm picking instrumentalists, I'm really trying to hear for that spark, that magic, and I write to them. I'm
Mm.
humble. I say I am not a very big composer, which I'm not, and I'm not popular, but I love your music, and I would love to collaborate with you. I've done that with Indian classical musicians. I did that with Muriel. Muriel Anderson, harp guitarist. I sent her an email. She didn't respond for 3 years. apparently apparently she had lost that email, and then she responded, and we had just a phenomenal 4 hour session in Santa Cruz. And since then, every year we do some kind of collaboration, and that's true with any instrumentalist that I've worked with. It's sort of a friendship and a love that grows.
Wonderful. That's the way it should be, I think. In some of your first, well, I should say that, how many years have you been producing your videos?
So the videos are relatively recent. I would say 2004 is when I
Okay.
started the YouTube channel, and I started learning Final Cut Pro and trying to see what I can do
Hmm.
with videos. Um, but I've been doing music since the 80s, doing fusion music since the 90s.
Right, right. As someone who's just recently become more aware of your music, I was looking through the videos in YouTube, and I came across a very familiar shabad to many people, Jo Mange Takur Apanete, and I was really touched by it because it's a shabad that almost every school kid in Punjab learns at some point, and yet your presentation seemed to really bring new life, new light into that. You you used an arranger with that, I noticed, and I could hear in the chord changes that were sort of in the background, and I wonder, what was the inspiration as you worked with that shabad to find a new way with it?
There were two things. One is on the Indian classical side, and one is on the music side. So on the Indian classical side, I tried to do research from where this Shabad came into being. The Shabad it really got popular in the 50s. And during that time, there was this composition by Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab, and I don't remember which bhajan it was. It was a bhajan, and this really amazing Indian classical vocalist improvised on that bhajan, and it was that rag. It was Pahadi, and I heard this Pahadi. I knew this Shabad was composed in a Pahadi melody. So I spent a couple of years learning Pahari from Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab, and so I tried to in the improv of the voice to add some of those elements into the shabad. Um, and then on the instrumental side, I had read a book, The Pursuit of Elegance, And this is in the 2009, 2010 time frame where I was trying to see what I can do with my fusion music. And the book really did it. The name of the book is In the Pursuit of Elegance by Matthew May. He doesn't really talk about music. It's really about art and EMC square, anything that is elegant. The iPhone, he talked about the iPhone. It was really a book for business people, how to make products elegant. And I was like, oh, this is how I feel Guru Nanak's music must have been. It was the highest elegance. And so I read it and I found elements uh, of elegance across the board, whether it was music, art, poetry, sculpture. And I try to take those elements and include them in my compositions. And the elements were like simplicity, symmetry, subtraction, seduction. Um, and so one of the things that I did on the arrangement side was I tried to use those elements to make the music simple, seductive, subtractive, take things out versus putting a lot in. Um, and symmetry. So, repeating things where the music by itself becomes a meditation, and you don't really have when the music is repeated, you don't think about it because it's going on. It becomes a background, and that's what gives the focus on the words. So I use those two elements to create this the Joe Mange, and since then I've done two or three different versions of it. Um, and that's the Shabad I obviously love, that one and Sas Sas Timro are ones that are not my compositions. I've taken them from other folks and sort of developed them.
Well, they're beautiful, both of those that you mentioned. So before I ask any more questions, I want to remind our listeners, our viewers, that we're going to be wrapping up in about 15 minutes. So if you have any particular questions to ask Shivpreet Singh, go ahead, and I've seen that there are a couple in the comments already, but if you have other questions you want to post, go ahead and put them in now, and then in a couple of minutes I'll get to those questions before we wrap up. I'm trying to figure out which, I wanted to talk about some of the specific videos, but some of them are so powerful. You just released a beautiful Kaban Bani
Yes.
that just blew me away. Beautiful.
Yeah, it blew me away as well. I mean, sometimes I do I do the music, and then I'm working on my video, and that's part of my process because while I'm listening to the music, I'm working on the video, and I'm learning new things about the words, and it goes beyond the words. It becomes, video art is more about color, and that Shabad is so much about color, and I was able to do some cool things with that
Yeah, it's
video, and in the end,
visually, yeah.
it looked really nice to me.
So I want to talk a little bit about the visual because, obviously that particular video is very powerful with the use of color. But some of the other videos, I was thinking about Raymond Nesso, Karsanyasa, where the images of the forest really connect to the story of the Shabad and the feeling of maybe what sadhu's life living in the forest, and the imagery takes you into the natural, the beauty of the forest. Was that your intention from the beginning with that particular one? And is it often your process that the words or the meaning of the Shabad points you toward particular visuals?
Um, uh, like I said, I talked about the simplicity angle on the elegance. I think if you connect one, and this is what Guru Nanak I think does so well with his words, he connects one Shabad with one visual, and visuals are so powerful because a visual is worth a thousand words, like they say. and you just put the forest out there. And in that Shabad, it was even more powerful because me and Muriel, this was our first meeting. We met in the Santa Cruz Hills, and it was surrounded by forests. And it was a beautiful. And so that's why we decided to record this Shabad there. And it was sort of, we are going into the forest of our mind, and that's where the meditation begins. But yeah, I think generally the visuals will come to me after I've done the audio recording. But in this case, it was so apparent that this was what we were doing, and we were even recording it in the forest. So I had to find some visual about the forest. I'd actually recorded something myself, but it didn't turn out as nice, and so I used something that I found that was royalty free.
Yeah, the synergy is beautiful between the imagery and the Gurbani. Um, I got one more question, and then I'm going to ask a couple of questions from the comments. Um, it would appear to me that you have released over 20 recordings this in the last 12 months. Is that about right? That
Uh,
seems that seems incredibly productive during this time that, a lot of other things going on. Were you able to do that because the pandemic had impacted all of our lives in a way that maybe kept you at home more? You could focus on those things. Was there something going on there, or is it just you're excited and you're just doing a lot of work?
so when I started my new life as a musician in 2010, I decided myself that I would do at least one recording every month. Um, so that's about 10 years. I have around 120 shabads on that have been released. But I think what changed was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I'd started celebrating Guru Nanak's 550th birth anniversary. And I think that brought a lot of focus to my music. I mean, I was doing anything that came to me, and I was a little scattered. But when I was more focused on Guru Nanak, I said I'll do at least 55 compositions this year. It's 550th anniversary, and it was 3 or 4 months, and I was already done with 55, and I was kind of feeling bad. And I think the focus has brought this kind of higher productivity, if you may. Now, that year I probably did over 150 compositions. Last year I've done over 100 compositions. What you see out there is a very small sliver of what the compositions that I've done. Um, it takes a long time to get the audio and the video is ready, especially because I'm mostly working myself. I'm very fortunate to have some really great musicians helping me, but they're really good musicians, so I don't like wasting their time. So I take whatever hour or 2 hours I get from them, do multiple compositions, and then go back home and play with whatever I've recorded for months on.
So there are a couple of questions that I want to quickly get to. Maybe the
Sure.
simple question first is one person is asking, what is your position? I don't know if people have a position, but what is your position on the healing aspect of the correct pronunciation of Gurmukhi? Do you have a
My
particular?
position is that uh, the the correct pronunciation does not matter. Um, and I have really come, I used to worry about my pronunciation a lot. I don't have the normal Punjabi pronunciation that most ragis have, and I didn't understand why that was. And it's really because one I grew up in Delhi, so I have a lot of Hindi influence in my accent. And second, the Punjabi that was spoken in our house was not your regular Punjabi. It was from the Lenda Punjab or Multan. Multan is where Bhai Nand Lal went after Guru Gobind Singh Ji sent him there, and our 10 generations really lived in Multan. My father was born in the house that Bhai Nand Lal's house. So we spoke Multani, and that Multani is it's a beautiful language. It's the language of Baba Sheikh Farid, but it's the pronunciation is very different, and some of the words are different. But some of the Gurbani has these Multani words, so I feel very fortunate, connected to
Yeah.
those words. But I don't feel like the pronunciation is important. I think the love is more important.
Thank
Um,
you. Yeah, that's very important to me too. I feel like people who get too focused on, oh, you said it this way and it should be that way. Okay, I'll work on correcting that in the future, but in the moment, it's about
I,
devotion.
I don't even correct it. I mean, this is my pronunciation, and this is my devotion to my guru, and this is how I am. If you don't want to accept me, I'm sorry, but I'm fortunate that the guru accepts me.
Exactly. Yes. The divine, is going to accept us even when we make mistakes. That's the whole point of having that connection. Um, I think I'm not going to get to any more questions because our time is just about up. I want to introduce to the people watching that we're going to be showing a segment of a longer video that Shivpreet Singh is releasing right after this, right? Today, sometime
Yeah,
it'll be
it's
available.
about an hour from now. It'll be
Great.
released.
Okay. And that'll be on your YouTube channel?
Yes.
Great. So this is the Shabad that Shivpreet Singh shared with us at the beginning. And so I'm going to bring this up now. And then after the 5-minute video, we'll come back and just wrap up. So everybody hang tight.
Let me slow down from the hustle and bustle of life to remember and sing Hari's name until my mind is fashioned by Hari's Shabad. Give me this wisdom that is exalted, this mat that has been made uttam, like the sunset has made everything saffron. And the true Guru leads a seeker gently to a deep journey within. Uttam mat mere hriday tu aao. Uttam mat mere hriday tu aao. Mere hriday tu aao. Uttam mat mere hriday tu aao. Mere hriday tu aao. Dhyavo gavo gun govinda. Dhyavo gavo gun govinda. At preetam mohe lage na. Uttam mat mere hriday tu aao. Mere hriday tu aao. शबद बनाओ एहो मान गुर कै शबद बनाओ एहो मान गुर का दर्शन संचो हर धार गुर का दर्शन संचो हर धार हर धान संचो हर धान उत्तम उत्तम संचो हर धान मेरे हृदय तू आ ध्यावो गावो गुण गोविंदा ध्यावो गावो गुण गोविंदा अत प्रीतम मोहे लागे ना उत्तम मत मेरे हृदय तू आओ
Beautiful, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Shivpreet Singh. So I want to thank all of you who have been watching today. Please like this if you're on Facebook and share it around. If you're on YouTube, please share the link so others can get a chance to listen to Shivpreet's explanations and stories. And it's really a wonderful chance to get to understand a musician who is trying to extend the reach of Gurbani, and it's very inspiring. So I want to personally thank you, Shivpreet Singh Ji, for this time together, and we hope to see you down the road somewhere, perhaps in person. Will be lovely, and all blessings to you in your continuing pursuit of your music and video work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this honor, and thank you all for listening. Wonderful. Looking forward to meeting you in person.
All right. Satnam Ji, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.